to chair or facilitate a meeting and you're a little bit worried that there could be some conflict coming up through it, here's a great tip that I use as a workplace mediator. In the city, in the country, white collar, blue collar, orange collar, it works and it can help you better manage that meeting. So stay tuned. Hi, I'm Andrea Doyle, owner of Doyle Solutions. I'm a workplace mediator, conflict manager, author and presenter. And in this video, I'm talking about how you can use ground rules to help you manage meetings. Workplace mediations, like any conversations, need to have boundaries around them, and that's what contributes to their success. So when you're facilitating or chairing a meeting, make sure you have these boundaries as well. But we call these boundaries ground rules. That's right, good old basic ground rules. Now, it will only take you a couple of minutes to give them consideration before you enter that meeting room, but the long-term benefits can be invaluable. Here's what to do before the session. Now, before I go into a workplace mediation, I consider the ground rules that I'll be recommending that will be used by the participants today. So before a workplace mediation, I do three things. One is I make a note to myself to remind me to introduce the ground rules. Two, I plan the language that I'll use around the ground rule. And three, I will consider the types of ground rules that might be relevant to this mediation. In your role as a chair or a facilitator of a meeting, you need to follow those same 3 points. Write yourself a note, consider what language to use, and consider which ground rules will be appropriate for this group of people you're bringing together. So that's before the meeting. Next, I consider what to do at the beginning of the session. I commence a mediation by outlining the process and also what my role as a mediator in that process. Once participants understand that they're the decision makers in the mediation and I will be guiding them through a process, then it's time for me to introduce the ground rules. As a mediator, I would introduce the ground rules along the lines of, in my experience as a workplace mediator, I find that having a ground rule around this mediation process helps the participants to talk through the issues that have brought them to the table. The ground rule of respect is one where people value being able to speak without being interrupted, which means everybody has a chance to speak, everybody has a chance to listen. Do you agree to follow the ground rule of respect here today? So if you're chairing or facilitating a meeting, you could use something similar, or you might even want to use one of the values of your organisation to expect how this meeting will unfold. So what's happened so far is you have considered what to do before the meeting starts and at the beginning. Now is the important part of the actual meeting going ahead. So in a mediation, if I am hearing and observing people talking over the top of each other, I will stop the conversation and I will remind the person who's not following the ground rules that they had accepted to follow them at the beginning of the session. Now, usually this only requires one reminder and most people will check on their own behaviour and follow that ground rule. In all the years I've been mediating, I've never had somebody challenge that. So what is important is that it has been set up front as an expectation, and then if you're managing that meeting, you follow through and do so. Now, sometimes though, there might be a repeat offender. Sometimes they're just very eager to talk. Sometimes there could be other reasons. But if you do have a repeat offender, who in this case is talking over the top of somebody else, you simply stop the conversation every time it happens and remind them that they agreed to follow the ground rules at the beginning of the session. They will, after a while, pull themselves back into line and manage their own behaviour accordingly. Now, forgetting to set the ground rules is something you only tend to do once, and then after that, a gentle reminder seems to have been imprinted in your mind that if you're wanting to be able to manage a conversation or manage a meeting well, set these ground rules in case something untoward appears and it needs to be managed. Now, it is true, nobody has ever died or lost a limb from not setting a ground rule. But what has happened, if conflict hasn't been managed well, people will leave angry, anxious and annoyed about what's happened, and it doesn't reflect well on our workplace. Now, I'm sure none of us want that. So, if you're looking for some tips to be able to manage meetings or a workplace mediation better, make sure you set ground rules at the beginning of the mediation or your meeting and follow them through. Thanks very much for watching. I'm Andrea Doyle. Bye for now.